Hello everyone. Today we're going to be discussing the prepositions between and among. We're going to look at the differences between these two prepositions. Now these two prepositions are often confused because they are used similarly. However, there are important differences that we need to understand. There's a general rule, and it does apply to an extent, but there is an exception to that rule. And this general rule is that when we're talking about two entities, we use between. And if we want to talk about more than two entities, we use among. Like I said, that is true to an extent, but there is an important exception. These prepositions are used to talk about location, distribution, and they can also be used to to make comparisons. So they have a variety of uses, right? But now we are going to get into the specifics of these prepositions, and of course we are going to start with between. Now we use between when we want to refer to two or more entities that are separate or distinct. Now here we see the exception to that rule. We can use between to talk about more than two entities, right? But separate or distinct, meaning we have to know what the entities are. They have to be identified, right? It doesn't matter how many entities there are, right? As long as they have been identified, we use between. Therefore, the debate was between Mark, Anthony, and me. I can't say the debate was among Mark, Anthony, and me. No, I have to use between there because the entities are clearly identified, right? Which would be Mark, Anthony, and me. Those are the three entities that are involved in the debate, right? And as you see, we have three, right? You have to choose between Spanish or French. So this is a choice. And of course, you have two options. But this context or this description is very vague because this can refer to a variety of situations, right? So any situation that requires the entities to be known, then we need to use between. So this could refer to difference. So anytime we're talking about differences, we have to use between. If we're talking about connection, we need to know the elements that are involved. So we need between there. It doesn't matter how many entities are actually within. It doesn't matter how many entities are involved. We need between in those cases because we need to know what the entities are, because we could be talking about people. I say entities because we could be talking about people or things, right? So any scenario that requires the entities to be separate, we use between, even if we have more than two entities, right? So that's the first situation. Before we get to the second one, another point, distribution, right? When we're talking about dividing something or meaning that something has to be shared, we can actually use both between and among, but between will be used when we are talking about two people. When we're talking about two persons, we're going to use between, right? Right. Now, to refer to a point in the middle of two places, persons, or things. So this deals with location or position. So if we want to say that something is in the middle of two things, then we use between. So of course we need to have two things on both sides. Or it could be we could be talking about persons as well. So for example, Anna's house is between the church and the library. So that means that Anna's house is in the middle, the church could be on the left, and the library on the right. And her house is in the middle. So we say that Anna's house is between, those two places. Similarly, he is between the two girls. The man or the boy is in the middle, and on both sides there are two girls. Or on both sides there is a girl. On both sides. Okay? So anytime you want to say that something is, or someone is between, no, not between, is in the middle of two people, persons or things, we use between. So this is how we use between when we are talking about position. And as you see, it deals with two as well. Time frames and numbers. So anytime we want to talk about a range of time, right, we use between. So I lived in Spain between 2020 and 2023. So all of that time would represent the time that I lived in Spain. And to talk about the range, we use between, the starting point and the end point. Usain Bolt trains between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. on Fridays. Once again, we have a time frame. Start, end. Yeah. The students study between 9 and 12 subjects. So this would be numbers, and that's also a range. 9, that may be the lower end, and 12 may be the upper end. Right? So, yes. Anytime we're talking about time frames and numbers, we use between. All right? So these are generally the contexts in which we use between, right? So let's recap before we proceed to among. So we're going to use between when we want to mention when we're talking about two or more entities that have been identified. We use between when we want to talk about an object or person being in the middle of two things or people or persons, right? We use between when we want to talk about time frames. And in terms of distribution, in terms of sharing, right? We use between when we are talking about only two persons. So I would say, if I wanted to give you an example, I would say, she shared the money between Susanna and me. She shared the money. Yes, she shared the money between Susanna and me. And I have to use between there because we're talking about two recipients. Now, if we had more than two recipients, then we would have to use among. So on the topic of distribution, we use between when we're talking about two recipients. Okay? Yes. So these are the contexts in which we use between. So now we are going to proceed to among. Okay, so we move on to among. Now, among is going to be used to refer to something collectively or imprecisely. Now, you see this will be a big difference here because with between, when we use between, we are talking about individual entities, that are separate. But here, with among, these entities are going to be considered as a whole or as a collective. Therefore, we use among. There was a disagreement among committee members. Now, committee members would be seen as a group, right? And a committee can be comprised of many members, right? So this can be, it could be 10, 15, what have you. But it is seen as a group. Therefore, we use among. She has to choose among the countries. We don't know the number of countries, but the countries are seen as a group, as a whole. So we use among. But right. Now, if we were to list the individual countries, then we would have to use between. But because the countries are seen as a collective, we use among. So that lack of precision, okay? That lack of precision is going to necessitate that we use among. Secondly, when this is talking about location, when something or someone is in the middle of many things or people, so there's no defined path, and we could also use the phrase surrounded by, right? The house is among the trees. That means that the house could be in the middle and all around it would be trees, right? In other words, the house is surrounded by trees, okay? So if I were to say the house is between the trees, that means the house is here and there is a tree on both sides, right? But with among now, the house is here and all around it would be trees, okay? Same thing with the no defined path. If I say he walked between the trees, that means that there were two trees and he walked between them. But if I say he walked among the trees, that means he didn't go through any of them. He may have just walked, but they were around. So his path was not defined, right? So you can see that when it comes to between and among, one key difference is going to be precision, right? Terry is among the girls. Same thing. It means that he is surrounded by girls. That's right. And three, when something or someone belongs to a group. So this is similar to the first one, where you're highlighting one entity that belongs to a larger group, right? So Spanish and English are among the world's most widely spoken languages. So the world's most widely spoken languages would be a group. And Spanish and English are a part of that group. So we use among there. We were among the first ones to arrive. The first ones to arrive would be a group. And we were included. Okay? So we use among there. So when it comes to distribution, we are going to use among if we are talking about more than two persons, right? So the teacher shared the sweets among the class. The class is comprised of many students, it could be 30 students, what have you, but it's a large amount of students. So we use among there. The teacher shared the sweets among the class. Plus, that's a collective as well, right? That's a collective. But yes, when it comes to distribution, we are going to use among if we're talking about more than one person, more than two people, more than two persons, right? All right. So this brings us to the end of among, and now we are going to proceed to a quiz. Okay, so now we are going to see if we understand the differences between these prepositions. Notice I use between. Right. So yes. 1. She has to choose between or among medicine, law, or psychology. So we have 3 entities that have clearly been identified, so we need between. Even though there are 3 entities, we need between because they have been identified and they're separate. Okay? 2. I sat between or among the fans. Among, because the fans would be seen as a collective. So we would use among there. 3. The money has to be shared between or among you and me. So this is distribution. How many people are we talking about here? Or how many persons are we talking about here? 2. Therefore, we need between. I could change you and me to us, and it would still be between because we're talking about 2 persons. But if we were talking about more than 2 persons, we would use among, right? So when it comes to distribution, it will depend on the amount of persons, right? Or the amount of recipients. And 4, cancer is between or among the world's deadliest illnesses. Okay, among, because cancer is part of that group. What is the group? The world's deadliest illnesses. And cancer forms a part of that group. All right, pretty simple. So I hope that you understand the differences between these 2 prepositions now. I hope that this was helpful and that you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and as always, see you in the next one.